Good morning, crew. It's Sunday, the 22nd of September, or January, September. And I just watched your video that you put up last night about the swim meet. Looked like it was a lot of fun for you. No, seriously, I completely understand what you're talking about when you say that you enjoy watching the technique and everything. And, it's interesting. I think I failed to appreciate how much cultural context has to do with what we view as what we value, and the whole winning and losing thing in competition. Competition is great, but there's all kinds of cliches about it. I love competing, and I love to win. But I also, when you think about competing, or when I think about competing and trying to win, I think about, you've got to recognize that there's a certain amount of chance, and there's the things that are within your control and the things that are outside your control. And so, like when I'm coaching soccer, I try to think of what things we can control and my players can control, and so when you look at that world, you can break that down into do they have the skill? Do they have the knowledge to make the right decision? And do they have the desire? And it's sort of those three components I think about. And so, I find that when I'm coaching, when I get upset with kids, it's when I know that they have the knowledge and the skill, but they don't apply the desire. And that may not be fair because different kids have different levels of motivation, but that's the thing that frustrates me more than anything. And that's when I was coaching at the high school, the JV team with Carew. That was one of the most frustrating things. I think I told you this, but we used to run drills. We were doing corner kick drills, and kids sending in corner kicks, and it's bouncing through the 6-yard box every time, and nobody's getting to it. And so I said to the kids. So I got out there and I said, okay, if I touch the ball, then you guys all have to run a lap. And so I started way at the far post out on the top of the 18-yard box. And so the kid, of course, doesn't want to run a lap, so he kicks it short, and I sprint. As soon as he starts running up, I start sprinting near post, and I beat every other kid on the team to the ball. And it's like, but all of a sudden there's an intensity among those kids, like there's a desire, and they start competing. And so I beat them to the ball, I make them run a lap, and they come back, and I said, why did I get to the ball? What did I do? And they're like, I don't know. And I said, all I did was run. That's all I did. There was no skill involved, there's no intelligence involved. I just ran. I saw where the ball was, and I ran towards it as hard as I could. It was all just desire to get to the ball. And and at that point, those kids are as big or bigger than me. They're fast or faster than me. I was younger then, but so it's always interesting to me what the components are when you're teaching kids. And so the reason I'm talking about this is when I look at games and I look at how somebody played, I always try to think about, okay, number one, what are they trying to achieve? What is it that their coach has told them to do? What are they trying to achieve as a team? Because often, people look at a game and they say, oh, so-and-so did this. They didn't get forward at all. They disappeared. And I look at the game and I'm like, their coach, their job in that game was to shut down the left winger on the other team. It wasn't to get forward. And yeah, they have the capability to get forward, but in this game, their job was to make sure keep that left left winger on the other team busy. And so, the way you analyze that, and so often, when I get in these discussions about how games went, I find people going blah blah blah, and I kind of say, well, you can't really judge. The only person really qualified to judge a player's performance is the player and the coach, who knows what they were trying to achieve, and and yeah, you're trying to win the game, and that's what comes back to the way that we talk about winning. So you can, as a player, go out and do exactly what you set out to do for your coach. Your coach can say, your job in this game is to do this. And you're essentially you can sacrifice a player for the greater strategy. And that player may play their role perfectly, they may do everything that's asked of them and accomplish everything that's asked of them, and the team may still lose. And I don't have a problem with that, and that's when I coach soccer. That's how I feel about that too. We get our kids out there playing intensely, and it's completely okay. I don't have a problem losing. Now, the interesting thing about that is that in our culture, that's not okay. It's like winning is more important than playing well, and one of the things that I have kind of come to realize when you look at European soccer, and one of the things I love about European soccer is that you have multiple competitions. And yeah, one competition is sort of, there's always one competition that sort of trumps all others and is the most desirable competition. And I think I kind of talked about this year with the Galaxy playing in the U.S., because in the U.S. there's the U.S. Open Cup, there's the regular season, and then there's the playoffs. And they're actually three completely separate competitions. And then there's CONCACAF Champions League. So the Galaxy was playing in 4 different competitions this year. And in England, there's like the FA Cup, the Carling Cup, the Premier League. There's UEFA Champions League. There's what's the other one? There's the Champions League, and then there's UEFA Cup, I think, which is kind of like NCAA and NAIA tournaments for Pan-Europe. And the truth is that all of these different tournaments are valuable, and they're all competitions. And in the U.S., we have this weird thing about wanting to know who's the best. We want to definitively know who's the best. So we've come up, and one of the things that Americans don't realize is we have this uncritical thing about the playoffs, about this idea of playoffs. And so what you're really talking about is you have a year-long tournament that is everybody playing everybody else just an enormous number of times, and the the team that comes out the best at the end of that, all they get is to go into this playoff, which is a crapshoot. When you have an elimination playoff, it really is a lot of luck, and so and so basically you're qualifying for another tournament by doing this. Now in England, it's interesting because the Premier League is seen as the regular, what we would call the regular season here, is seen as the best indicator of who the best team is. And in the U.S., we think of the playoffs as the indicator of who the best team is. Ideally, like the year that England or Manchester United, was in 1999, won the treble. They won the FA Cup, the Premier League, and the Champions League. That year you can pretty much say that they were the best team. But in the U.S., so we've got the Packers, who went 15-1 during the regular season, eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. So they have some distractions, whatever. They were the best team. They were the best team this year. So who's going to win the playoffs? A different tournament. So who's the best team in the playoffs? Could be the Patriots. Could be anyone. But the interesting thing for us is that in the U.S., like when the Mariners had the record season. I can't remember when that was. It was sometime 2001. My wife says because she remembers. And so they were the best team in Major League Baseball that year, but eliminated in the playoffs, and people don't think of them as the best team, and they don't get any prize at all for that, which is kind of weird. But all of that comes back to the arbitrary nature of how we define competition. And so, and I think that recognizing that, you've got to have rules if you're having a competition, but, as somebody participating in that competition, I think what you were talking about with the kids swimming, I mean, you want to think about all the things that you can do. And, yeah, in the end, we had a game last spring, I guess almost a year ago now, with Gareth's soccer team, where we've been playing this team from another local town that usually beat us, but we're pretty close to their level. And the last game of the season, we played them, and we beat them 1-0. And it was awesome because we had spent the whole season talking tactically about how to defend compactly, how to be patient with the ball once we got it, and then how to take advantage of counterattack goals. And that's basically what we did against these guys. And we played the whole match. We controlled all the things that we could control and played well. And the winning is because culturally, because of the way it works, the winning is an affirmation of doing all the right things. And it's really too bad that kids at a young age have trouble understanding that so you get and this is where you get kids who are encouraged by coaches to do things that aren't sustainable in the long run because it helps them win in the short run, and they don't develop other skills and become more well-rounded players because they're doing what it takes to win in the short run. And I think that's I find that really frustrating and not very good. Anyway, sorry, that was a long rant about that. The only other thing I wanted to talk about was actually apropos to that, I guess. I watched the U.S. men's national team play last night. They played Venezuela, and it's like the U.S. C team. I think we had 3 starters who had never had a cap with the U.S. men's national team. Graham Zusi, A.J. De La Garza, and I can't remember who the third one was. It was Jeff Cameron, center back. And the U.S., Venezuela was bad. They were just, they came out and they clearly were, it was their C team as well, and they were clearly intimidated by the U.S. players. They, strategically, they were just going to sit back and let the U.S. come at them, and they had one lone forward, Alejandro Moreno, who played for LA Galaxy before. I can't remember. He plays for Chivas now. I really like his game, but he's a target striker. He's not super fast. He works hard. He controls the ball well with his back to the goal, and he played pretty well. But he was all alone up there, and the U.S. in the meantime just completely took it to the Venezuelans. I mean, they were just chance after chance after chance. Not very sharp in the box, though. And the U.S. didn't play that well either. I mean, they were just bigger and faster and stronger, but didn't look that great. But the crazy thing was, during this game, on every single corner kick, the U.S. had like 6 corner kicks. There was one of the Venezuelan guys would take the U.S. player. U.S. would put a point player right in front of the goalkeeper in the 6-yard box. And the Venezuelan guys would take this defender, and he'd go up and he would put his arms around the guy, and when the guy kicked the corner kick, he would grab him and wrestle him to the ground. Literally hold on to him and wrestle him to the ground every corner kick. And I'm watching in the video, I'm going, oh my God, how can they let that happen? And so, it just happened over and over and over again, and it's going 0-0. We go into stoppage time. They say 4 minutes of stoppage time. The Venezuelans start wasting more time, and they do this. The U.S. gets a free kick, and they waste 3 minutes the goalkeeper pretends like he's injured and then gets up, and so the 4-minute stoppage time is gone, and the U.S. Misses the free kick and then gets the ball back, and finally 7 minutes into stoppage time, it's a corner kick, and the U.S. scores on the corner. And once again, the guy in the middle of the box wrestles down the U.S. player, but another guy comes in and heads the ball and scores a goal. So justice was done in the end, but it was just an interesting match to watch. I could not believe the ref. At least you got to give a warning. Yeah, you don't want to call a penalty on contact on a corner kick every time, but give the guy a warning. Say, if you do that again, you're getting a card and it's a PK. But no. Anyway, I have exceeded my time limit. So if you get a chance on YouTube, actually, I'm going to put a link below, a link to both the Everton, the assist by Donovan, maybe a link to the Everton website, where if you have to log in, you have to create a free user account, but you can watch like 20-minute highlights of their games or 5-minute highlights of their games, and I'll also put a link to the highlights for the men's national team game. I will talk to you soon. Still dead.